Mutant Chronicles, Fiction, The Apostle of Insanity Trilogy, Volume 3, Dementia, by Michael A. Stackpole. Chapter 19. I awoke in a bed I did not recognize. I awoke with my left arm draped around the shoulders of a naked woman I did not recognize. I even awoke in a body I didn't recognize. I decided it had to be a Monday. Of the three immediate problems, the body bothered me the most. The bed, while a little like a prison with brass bars at head and foot, was comfortable. Rex had used enough of my aesthetic sense to avoid black sheets and silk sheets, or combinations thereof, so I avoided the momentary shock of thinking I'd awaken in some corporate joy house. The woman was the least of my problems, though her left arm did lay somewhat possessively across my bare chest. Her blonde hair smelled faintly of some synthetic flower fragrance, and she murmured out a kittenish purr as I tried to ease her head from my shoulder and onto the pillow. Her long legs had ensnared my left leg, so extricating myself was not going to be simple. Despite her slender physique, generating the leverage needed to move her gently was not going to be easy. Ms. Wickersham, Madeline, I seem to recall from Rex's fantasy life, snuggled back closer to me, shutting the door on my escape. She trapped me within her arms and within the body Cybertronic had given Rex. Despite her loveliness and the eroticism inherent in our situation, I wanted to crawl out of my skin and run screaming through the night. The image struck me as funny, but only because I had waited 18 months to get back into my body. I'd actually always been in it, but it had taken that long for me to figure out how to get back in control of it. By the time I had worked my way through the mazes of synapses and neural interface circuits, Rex's personality had grown strong enough to oppose me and fight me for control. It was a battle he would lose, eventually, but a hard-fought battle nonetheless. I would have enjoyed winning, but I accepted taking over after he retired from the field of combat. I knew I shouldn't be upset with my body. Getting it back after a year and a half wasn't like picking up a suit from the cleaners. I held my right hand out and stretched, and noticed that my hand was just that much closer to my face than it had been before. Perhaps it is like getting a suit back from the cleaners. Things do shrink. Even though I was aware that my hand looked wrong to me, it did not feel wrong, and that miracle I owed to Rex's hard work during my rehabilitation. He had determined to take command of the shell in which he found himself. Of course, I'd not left it in such poor shape that his job was impossible, but the speed at which he recovered was remarkable. I suddenly realized that I had to stop thinking of Rex as a separate individual, because everything he had done had been built upon a foundation I had supplied him. What I was now was a synthesis of what I had been and what Rex had done in creating himself. Even a computer had a share of what we were. Without it, we would have died. It was not a question of which one of us had taken over the body, but really more one of a merger between rival firms. As the current chairperson of the board, elected to that position because of my long association with the firm, I directed operations. It was a post I had held before, and aside from the one unfortunate circumstance, I had been quite successful in it. I decided, lying there in bed with Ms. Wickersham's embrace, that my first order of business was not to realize the explicit fantasies of the old CEO. Instead, I chose to face the thing he would not. I chose to try and pierce the veil surrounding the circumstances of my death. I recalled Beach saying this was not something Cybertronic encouraged in new chasseurs, but I was hardly new, and I already had access to the information they would have given Rex had he but asked. Before death, I had been Quentin Kell, of the capital Kells, second son of Archibald Kell, a minor but powerful in his own way executive within the capital corporate structure. My father had seen very early on that the taste in consumer items changes and had to change for a corporation to profit. Managers who championed new products that succeeded could rocket to the top of the corporate structure. But if the fickle public turned on them, or if their new ideas did not match their old ideas, those managers tumbled from their lofty seats. The corporate world was controlled chaos, and when you lost your grip on it, you were consumed, digested, and eliminated. My father realized that in that paradigm, he had isolated a bit of firmament in the corporate universe. No matter what products the corporations put out for profit, they always put another product out and never profited from it. Corporate waste, rubbish, garbage, refuse was an open wound that bled cardinal's crowns for every company. He resolved to staunch the wound as much as possible. While moving into waste resource management was not a glamorous route to power, everyone needed my father, so they accepted him and respected him. My older brother's first coup in corporate life came in the form of the idea that he suggested to my father. Nicholas asked him if the information leaks were not really just a subset of waste management. Bad information, like useless garbage, could be eliminated, and good information, like waste that formed the raw materials for other enterprises, had to be retained. It struck my brother that corporate security, dirty work, after all, should fall into my father's corporate fiefdom. With Nicholas's help, my father organized a power play that gave him control of Capital's internal security. My father offered Nicholas control of security, but the offer was refused. Instead, my brother convinced my father to create a special internal security investigation unit that was supposed to initiate counter-espionage and disinformation efforts against the other corporations. Other corporations and the Brotherhood. The corporate gods in their Olympian penthouse suites decided his plan was good, and it was implemented. Nicholas hired specialists to train his agents in anything and everything they would need to complete their missions. His goal was to create agents who were to covert operations what the cartel's doom troopers were to military actions. His trainers were uncompromising and demanding, but those who graduated from their program were an amalgam of all their skills, making them lethal chameleons who could slip into any setting, establish themselves, and begin their missions immediately. I know because I was the first graduate. My first couple of missions involved getting close to Imperial and Bauhaus agents in Capital satellite facilities. I learned what they knew and passed on to them enough information that their controllers decided they were very reliable. Once that had been done, I gave them a story that made their corporate masters buy heavily in the stock of worthless subsidiaries. Capital sold what the others were buying and made enough in profits to fund my brother's operations for his next 2 5-year plans. Those operations were just warm-ups, because Nicholas and I both wanted to crack the Brotherhood. That order, we agreed, had exerted influence well beyond its worth. Unfortunately, the Brotherhood had enough supporters in key positions that defying it was impossible. If one of the Brotherhood's corporate toadies saw another executive as a threat, the Brotherhood would find a way to discredit the threat, and their man would gain in prestige and power. The problem with this purge and promote system was that no one was certain that what the Brotherhood sought to eradicate even existed. We had all heard of the Dark Legion, but only in the way that people speak of organized crime. We accepted it existed, but no one could point a finger at it and say, there it is. Having shared a mind with an apostle and having watched a Razid in action, I now had a new yardstick against which to measure rumors of the Dark Legion. But back before my death, I did not. Nicholas and I staged some very invisible and violent arguments. I started drinking, and eventually people from the Brotherhood approached me. They offered me their strength and solace, though I never found myself enmeshed with any of them as I was with Miss Wickersham. I had no doubt that the Brotherhood's acolytes had been willing to go that far and further to bring me into the fold. I played hard to get, and they persisted. I let them wear me down and settle me down. I returned to my status as model employee at Capital. People sympathetic to the Brotherhood within Capital brought me into their social circles. Once they decided I passed muster, the Brotherhood even approached me about joining the Order on a permanent basis. I demurred, but they insisted, and I let them put me through the battery of tests. The results must have been a positive because my Brotherhood contacts insisted I would be of greater service to humanity if I joined the Brotherhood. Again, I hesitated and put them off. My joining the Brotherhood as more of a lay member went further than my brother or I had intended, and I was not going to take that step without consulting him. We met and decided I would refuse. I remember feeling relief as we both agreed that things had been too successful. We settled for the partial picture of Brotherhood influence in Capital and make sure I didn't get sucked in too far. We shook hands, and I left him in the apartment suite he shared with his wife Anastasia and their children Garrett and Laura. I got nothing more. I backed up and dealt with each discrete memory as if they were individual beads in a rosary. The offer, the tests, the insistence on my joining, my brother, the handshake. Nothing. I smashed my balled fist on the bed and was surprised by the tearing sound of the sheets and mattress covers. That shift in leverage really did do the job. I wonder. I twisted my left hip and placed my left hand on Ms. Wickersham's spine. I left her head resting on my left forearm, then snaked my right hand beneath her ribs and her right breast and gently lifted her torso. It worked better than I had imagined it would. Slipping my left leg between her thighs, I pulled the coverlet up to her neck, stroked her cheek, and stepped out of bed. I got a good look at myself in the full-length mirror on the closet door. I appeared smaller than I remembered, and because of it, my torso looked stockier. My hair was longer than I liked, especially on the sides, and the hollows around my eyes gave me a haunted look, one I deserved after what I had gone through. Recalling the last time I'd looked in a mirror sent a shiver through me. I gave the looking glass a wide berth as I headed for the bathroom. The tiles felt cold beneath my feet, but not as cold as the marble that had paved my bathroom at home. It struck me that the bathroom in my home would have been large enough to contain the back half of this apartment, and the furnishings were far more elegant than anything this apartment would ever house. That realization did not spark in me the horror it might have in my peers at Capital. While I would have preferred marble to tile, this apartment had everything I needed to live contently. Had I a choice, I could have lived nicely in a place as small as this. Being Archibald Kell's son did not give me such a choice. As offspring of a corporate officer and significant stockholder, modest accommodations could not be mine. If I lived below my family's means, on a level in a tower below our due, people would start talking about how my father's grip on power was slipping. Were I to date outside my proper social circle, people would reason that other corporate officers saw no value in linking my family with their own. Corporate status, though it was the source of all benefits, did demand a price. Enduring creature comforts for the sake of keeping up appearances is hardly penance. The real restriction on who one could see socially, on the other hand, chafed and even threatened to smother people. Those who could live with it, like me, did so. Those who could not, revolted. Like Lucifer in his heavenly rebellion, those who did not want to be part of Capital were cast out, and never was their name to be spoken again. A shiver shook me, so I stepped into the shower and desperately tried to remember the proper handle position so the water wouldn't scald me. I got it pretty close and let the water run hot to warm me up. I took the dry soap from the little alcove built beneath the nozzle and worked it into a lather. I took refuge in the simple act of washing myself and wished, for a moment, that the totality of my life could be that simple. Then I felt other hands on my back. Making the soap available to me will facilitate the cleansing of the dorsal region of your anatomy. I remained facing the shower head. Ms. Wickersham, while I appreciate the help, I wonder if you're supposed to be doing this. My instructions were to monitor your recovery and assist in any way I could. I swallowed hard. I found the sensation of her hands soaping my back quite soothing. It was also helping me recover my other functions. She might have been willing to aid me in discovering the full extent of my recovery in that area. I had no desire to take advantage of a living automaton who was just following orders. You know how you could really help me, Ms. Wickersham. Please tell me, Mr. Dent. Prepare for me a big steaming cup of coffee. As you wish, Mr. Dent. Her hands left my body, and I sighed. One more thing, Ms. Wickersham. Yes, Mr. Dent? Put on some clothes. If that is what you desire, Mr. Dent. It is, Ms. Wickersham. I mumbled as I switched the shower to cold water. It is. Mutant Chronicles, Fiction, The Apostle of Insanity Trilogy, Volume 3, Dementia, by Michael A. Stackpole. Chapter 19, End.